that everyone has submitted offline. So I'll go ahead and give my spiel and I'll get us going live here. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another Chat and Learn here with PowerToFly. My name is Mariella and I'm super excited to jump into this next hour with you. This is a super hot topic now that we're about to dive into for the next hour, and you all are gonna see that it's gonna fly by. So for those of you who have joined us live, first I just wanna say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to chat with us today. With that said, I'll go over just some quick housekeeping rules so that we all feel confident and so that we can participate and really maximize this next hour. So I've muted everyone upon entrance just to avoid any background noise, but I cannot say enough that I want to hear from you. So feel free to come off of mute, turn your cameras on, put your virtual backgrounds on. It doesn't matter if you haven't showered. No judgments. I say this on all the chats just to encourage you all to show yourselves because, you know, visibility is key and lots of crazy things are going on in the world. So it's nice to see some familiar and smiling faces. So with that said, if anyone has any sensitive information as this chat comes up and you would like to keep that anonymous, feel free to write me in the chat box anonymously. You'll find me under Mariella, and then I will flag that to our guest speaker. The last thing that I'll say is that this is being recorded, so I would really appreciate your presence during this next hour. So I know that we live in a world where everyone is multitasking all the time, but I can't stress, I'd love for you to rewatch this video and then take notes there. But today, for this next hour, I'd love for you to be present. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I'm always gonna ask you to come off of mute or write in the chat box. The last thing that I'll say is that we would love for you to follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay connected with all the great chats we've got coming up. All right, so I'm gonna pass the mic to our guest speaker today. I had a moment to chat with her offline and I'm super excited to learn with her in this next hour. Christine, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know about PowerToFly and what you're excited to share with us today?
Yeah, a little bit about myself, as you could see right here on the little power slide there. I have a huge background in video production. I was once actually a television reporter in my past life, and then I transitioned into video production for companies like Microsoft and Amazon, and now I currently work as the senior content marketing manager at Screencast-O-Matic, which I can tell you a little bit more about during the talk. I have used, as you probably know, video to influence and to empower people all around the world. I guess my specialty is really crafting a story behind each video, and also to provide your message in an engaging way.
Beautiful. And I love that you just started like with the fact that stories are so important. I'm diving into Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote Homo Sapiens and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And I'm listening to a lot of his lectures and his presentations. And the one thing that he's saying that as far as he's a historian by nature, and he says that the one common thread that we're so good at as Homo sapiens is storytelling and how fictions tie us together. So especially now, I mean, I love that. I mean, I have my social resistance as far as social media is concerned, but I love that videos are kind of the highlight of social media these days because you are able to craft and show different perspectives, at least more so than oftentimes written words can do. So I'm happy to hear what you have to share with us today and any advice and tips and tricks, as well as jump into this huge array of questions that everyone has submitted offline. You all have submitted some great questions. I hope that we can get through all of them in this next hour, but if we don't, feel free to hop off of mute or write in the chat box if you feel like we are approaching our time. I will also flag everyone when we've got about 10 minutes left. So again, you all have submitted some great questions. We're calling from all over, calling from Argentina. I'm in Argentina. Our guest speaker's in Seattle. We've got some folks representing from Dallas, Texas, again, Buenos Aires, Argentina, California, Nevada, North Carolina. Awesome. So if you're just joining us, feel free to write in the chat box where you're calling from, and I'll give you a shout out a little later. All right, so Christine, let's start with this first question here. If this is your question and you're currently with us live, feel free to hop off of mute or write in the chat box if you want Christine to dive a little deeper here or give some more perspective. Okay, so how do you think starting remote jobs will be different during COVID as opposed to pre-COVID? When I interned at Mozilla in 2015, I met my colleagues at a summit in Florida before heading back home and working from there. Now I'm starting a new remote job next week, during which no one is flying much. And then we, of course, had to put that this question was submitted by one of our PowerToFly success stories who found the role and applied through us. So congratulations to this person. I don't know if they're on with us today. But Christine, I'd love to hear your perspective on this question.
You know, I've actually been working remotely for the past 2.5 years. I love it. And so I can, provide some sort of perspective as to the differences, right? So pre-COVID, you have the chance to be in an office, to really be authentic with people, to really know people outside work. I mean, we used to do happy hours and things of that nature. But now during COVID, it's much harder, as we all know, and you could see it on the news. I mean, remote learning and remote working situations have been really hard because of that connection, that lack of connection, and then that lack of portraying who you really are in a very remote setting. And so, my advice for anyone is, obviously, because I'm in video and because I know how it can influence people, not just live video as we are here right now, but also recorded video, but bit more, having them to hear you. And I know when we did studies on remote learning, students are more apt to really understand a topic if they hear your voice and see your face. And so I encourage that during COVID times. And you can keep up that authenticity, send out quick little messages and updates to your coworkers, and be fun about it. We don't have to be serious at home all the time. I know that there's so many distractions, and I know that there's so many things currently that are hampering us, but we can try to be creative and try to reach out when we can. I know that I have Slack for communication, but even sending out a quick video link where I'm saying, hey, look what I'm doing right now, and just being fun with it. Even showcasing my dog who's running around here somewhere brings in a little bit of authenticity.
Well, immediately when we logged on before going live, Christine, and it was just you and I chit-chatting, I was so attracted to your background. It looks like a sanctuary. You've got the flowers, you've got your compass, you've got the Buddha painting there, you've got your cozy cave, and that automatically brought some conversation, even though we hadn't met before. It helped us to get to know each other a little better. So you definitely are exposing that, just as far as working remotely and even doing this virtual chat. So showing a bit about yourself through video. So thank you for
it's my personality. Then you start to really question, wow, you have a compass, you've got the Buddhas. I mean, just by seeing this, you're seeing the Christine who actually travels the world and seeks out these little artifacts and collects them at their home. So it's a little bit of me. And I don't know about you, but when I'm watching CNN or MSNBC, I'm always looking at the background of the people that are talking, because it gives me a sense of, okay, that's how they're living, and that's the books that they read. I'm kind of weird when I do that, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that.
Well, it gives you context, right? I mean, especially today, we live in, I guess I'm highlighting social media again, just because it's such a hot topic as well. And there are these boundaries that we need to put on it, just because we're over consumed these days, especially. But as far as finding context and being able to connect with someone outside of a social platform, so when you're seeing someone speak, or you're introducing yourself on video to someone, you get to kind of practice what you preach a little bit on socials and bring that to life. And we're just experimenting with it right now, right?
Exactly. It's all been an experiment for the past, I think, 5 or 6 months now. So I'm glad that people are starting to get used to it. But yeah, it's definitely an experiment.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on to this next question here. Again, if this was your question, or if you had a dream last night and you find that this is relevant to your dream, feel free to come off of mute and write in the chat box. I want to hear from you all. All right, so Christine, any secrets for being camera ready while comfortable? I don't think any of us are up for a full face of makeup during quarantine, but I'm also not keen on going full newscaster in quotes by wearing sweatpants and a Windsor knotted tie.
Okay, because I was a former newscaster, I will take in a couple of these tips. So, typically when I'm working remotely, I actually just wear my tank top. But I do have a couple tops that I keep, like a cardigan or even something like this. You know, my jean shirt. I'll keep that near my office space just to put it around my shoulders, just so that I feel like I'm ready to be live or to be on video. And I would also do, you know, just a tiny bit of lip gloss, just, you know, just to put on. But, you know, to be quite honest, I don't wear a lot of makeup other than right now where I just put on this and then wear this. So just having those things just in your office and just being ready for that. I mean, right now, if I stand up, I'm in yoga pants. So as long as they see that I'm ready here, then it's okay. And I think being comfortable, like cardigans, you don't have to put on your suit. I will say this though, having worked remotely for the past 2.5 years, what has kept me sane or on schedule is that I still keep a schedule. I still wake up, I work out, and I have my own work hours, even though they may not be work hours for my actual remote job. It's for me to know that, okay, at 8:30, I'm at the desk and I'm raring to go. And I actually do dress up, not just, not just in my yoga pants, but I do put on some sort of something to make me feel like I'm mentally ready to work.
I love that you're saying being mentally ready to work. And there have been so many studies, and I'm so fascinated just about how different colors influence us, different smells, and how we can, even though we have this screen to detach us to a certain extent, we have the power to feel comfortable and confident, maybe more so now than maybe in person, in an office. I know I'm playing the devil's advocate there, but do you have any tips or tricks there with things? I mean, we've already talked about kind of how you built your surroundings and the things that you keep, handy. Are there any other tips to just, keep the mental flow going in your home office?
In my home office, I mean, just to keep that, I think just to keep that schedule and making sure that, and also making sure that everything that you have is just right in front of you, being prepared and organized. I still keep a calendar, actually written calendar and written notebooks. But just to make, coming from an office job to remote job, that was the biggest shift for me mentally. When I for the first couple weeks of starting a remote job, I kind of just was like, oh, okay, no one's gonna see me anyway. And that really kind of screwed me up a little bit. So I really have to put my face on, and I really have to mentally get ready for work, or I know that I don't deliver as effectively if I don't do that.
So I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I'm just going to throw in a random question. It's not so random. I feel like a lot of folks are probably battling with this. My sister, for example, who used to, I mean, most of her time was, I guess she was kind of a hybrid where she worked, in office and then also remotely for years. And now that most companies have gone remote, she called me. She was like, I can't believe these people just want to like Zoom in 2 seconds. Like I need to get myself ready. Like I just washed my hair, or I just finished playing with the kids. Like I can't be camera ready in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Do you have suggestions on being mindful about that? Or maybe, if you're working with a manager or a boss who is kind of pushing the limits and expecting you to be ready at the drop of a hat, do you have anything to kind of combat that or work with that?
Well, actually, I'm pretty honest. I do have a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, can you meet right now? Yes, I'll meet, but I'm not going to put on my camera. And they completely understand. And I think there's now a huge understanding for that you have a life outside of work. And so yesterday I had a meeting and they asked, that they were on camera, and I just said, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be on camera today. And they understood. They were laughing because they knew that I wasn't ready, for that. But I think there is much more compassion and understanding, especially now that mostly everybody is starting to transition into remote. So yeah, and in terms of tips, I mean, like I said, if she has to get ready, I'd say, give me a couple seconds, take that, shirt off, from here and just put it on. And even that is fine. Lighting doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to look perfect in a Zoom call anyway. So
Yes, and you don't have to look perfect in life. Let's just make that a whole big umbrella statement.
exactly. And then I noticed someone here, they were using a fake background for Zoom. I mean, just use that. If if your house is messy, I've used that many times. I actually had the beach background at one point. So, I think just I think what a lot of companies, and I've talked about this before previously with someone else, it's a lot of companies tend to have that traditional mindset still, and that things need to be, this, that, this, that. And in a remote setting, we all need to be flexible, not only with our work, but also with our home. A lot of us have kids, and we're kind of scrambling. So I think after that huge rush and being remote so fast, I think there is now an understanding. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love that you bring compassion into this because you wouldn't often think that compassion would go with like video meetings and conferences, but absolutely, and being flexible. I love that you're highlighting that.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's move on to the next question here. Any tips on how to engage with the new team virtually? There are not the same opportunities to get to know one another as you would have easily have in an office setting.
One of the tips that I would say is to have an introductory welcome video. If you're new to a job and you're new to a team, do a 1-minute video highlighting who you are and why you are working there, and just be friendly and just be you, and then send out that video link to the members of your team just so that they can get an idea who they're working with. I know a lot of times when you're working on a new team and you don't have that connection, you just feel like it's just work all the time. I know that can be kind of draining, but having that personal touch in everything that you do, I think would be great. I just send them a quick video. It doesn't have to be fancy, but at least they know who you are.
Absolutely. And I see some folks nodding their heads. I'd love to hear from you all as well. Can you write in the chat box for those of you who are live, where are you in your remote working journey? What challenges are you having? Those kinds of things, so that as we present these questions, we can dive in deeper, in accordance with what you are actually going through right now. And then with that said, I'll move on to this next question while you all are writing that in the chat box. Okay, so for those of us still looking to land our first remote role, what steps can we take in our current jobs to ensure that we'll be great applicants? Any skills we should work on developing?
I actually thought about this question a little bit more than the others, and I think when it comes to a remote job, and if you all have a remote job, the biggest thing that employers are looking for, because I'm currently at my company looking for 2 remote workers, so I know what I'm looking for when I look at a resume. But aside from the resume, I'm looking for someone who has independence, who has that entrepreneurial drive, only because at a remote setting, as a manager, I can't constantly be asking you questions. I have to know 100% that I'm putting full faith that this job is going to be done. And so at your current job and in the office, I would ask your managers to take on full projects that you can own yourself and that you can highlight in your new jobs or your new prospective jobs, that you can say that you own this from beginning to end. And that shows independence and a sense of like getting things done. And I think those are the types of skills that attract managers looking for remote workers, is people that they don't have to worry about, that they know will get the job done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so beautiful that this this sense of independence is kind of, you know, rearing its face in our heads right now, because it's giving a lot of folks who would not have normally been able to speak up or share different creative ideas an opportunity to do that, because yeah, like you said, remote work, you know, and independence come hand in hand. So yeah, and I'd love to hear more about, just because I know some folks are probably interested as well, who are listening live or who are going to listen to this playback. What roles are you currently looking for in your work?
We're looking for 2 marketing roles, senior product marketing manager role, as well as a senior growth marketing manager. Yeah, so ever since the start of COVID, my company in particular, Screencast-O-Matic, we provide video creation tools, and our huge demographic are educators. So as you know, remote learning has just been we've just been bombarded since the beginning of COVID. Up until now, and that's why we've got those two positions open. We've just hired a technical program manager. But if there's something of interest, I would say, if there's something of interest that you think that would be valuable for us, you know, send me an email. I would definitely take a look at that and then send it over to my team, because we are, you know, growing in certain ways as well.
Beautiful. And with that said, I like to use these live chats as an opportunity to connect. So those of us who are live, if you want to drop in the chat box your preferred social way of connecting, so whether that's LinkedIn or your website or your email, anything like that, so that we can keep this going and share and support each other. And you know, since we're all either looking to build our remote working skills or looking for remote work, you know, that's a good way to connect. So thank you, Beth, for dropping that in the chat. I've got just a couple of, well, I've got a private question here that I'm gonna flag. And Christine, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. So what about presenting yourself during an interview? Older computers do not offer virtual background. Should we add a picture to a white wall or leave it alone? And what types of questions should we ask during the interview to prove we can work from home? I do not work from home. Okay, so that's the private question.
From home. So the first question was, if you have an old computer and you can't get virtual background.
Yeah, so
is that right?
Yourself during an interview, how to develop this space that you're in, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they mentioned something about, you know, a white wall. You know, there are many tools out there that can do green screen, and you don't necessarily have to have a green screen. It could be a flat white wall or a black wall. It just really depends on, you know, your situation. I actually have, and I should have brought it out, but something bought over at a craft store, and it was just a blue paper that I could just put in the back for those types of green screen situations. And I think I bought that for $5. So you can just remove the color. But for someone that has an old computer, I mean, as long as you have a technology like Zoom or you know, Skype or any of those types of things, I believe you could still use it even on your phone. For instance, you could still use Zoom on your phone, or even on pretty much any computer, from what I know and understand. So what was the second question?
And what types of questions should we ask during the interview to prove we can work from home?
What types of questions? Oh, that's a good one. What are they looking for? In terms of expectations, like what are their expectations from someone working from home? And if they say work from 9 to 5, you know, which most remote companies probably who've been in remote for a while won't tell you that, but just to even get your projects done is probably the right answer. Then you can start talking about your skills. But primarily the first question I would ask is, what do you expect from me as I work from home? Is a huge one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as I interview so many beautiful minds in this Chat and Learn program, something that's coming up from various perspectives and different voices is that when you are interviewing with someone, it's just as much your interview as it is theirs. So to consider it like a partnership. So what do you want? right? And what are your expectations as well? And so not to ask, I guess maybe to redirect the question, how to help them see, like maybe you should show what you're expecting to learn as well, and how you're expecting to evolve in the work that you do. And I think that will give you a heads up as well.
Yeah, and it gives you an idea on whether you want to work with them as well. So, I mean, if you have kids and you don't have the flexibility or that they are expecting, or you don't have that type of flexibility, then it may not be a good company for you. So yeah.
Mhm. Beautiful. Okay, so let's move on to the next question here. And I'm just going to flag. So I've got some folks writing in the chat box about their current journeys. And if you haven't yet, feel free to write in the chat box. So we've got Beth here, still searching for a new role, but meeting the team for an interview next week and have some other things in the works. Congratulations, Beth. Trying to get prepared for starting with a new team without knowing what team building onboarding exercises there will be. Christine, do you want to talk a little bit about like maybe different experiments that you've seen or different versions of remote onboarding exercises, maybe something that you all do at your company, just so that Beth maybe can see, what the gamut is, what folks are doing to engage their new employees?
Well, a couple of things that I have talked to other companies about are like small little like video contests or questions. So, this would probably end up coming from one of your managers or someone else from your team, but asking a question on video and then getting everybody involved in a very fun way, or even doing little contests and having much more of a competition. That's for more of the team building, type of exercise. But you were asking more about onboarding exercises. So I think did I answer your question right, Beth? I see you on there.
Yeah, Beth, feel free to come off mute so we can hear your voice.
Oh,
Not to
she
put.
can talk.
Oh,
So
okay,
Todd,
good. Well, you're so active in the chat box. We hear you loud and clear there.
yeah.
Did you want Christine? Did Christine get your question answered? Okay. Okay. So let's move on to this next question on the screen here. So the company is remote and distributed. So working hours are very different for almost every employee. Should I establish working hours for myself when the company prides itself on flexibility? Now, you did speak a little bit about, making sure the structure of your day, makes you comfortable and confident. Can you just maybe dive in a little deeper regarding this question?
I think this is mostly for your own, I guess, sanity, if that's what you would call it. But having your own schedule for yourself is so important, and to communicate that to your team. If you let your team know that you are on at 8:30 to 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, at least they know that they can that they don't need to that they won't be able to expect a 2 a.m. response on Slack. I have talked to many companies who also have the same strategy in terms of like working hours around the world. And what they end up doing is doing little videos to keep people updated. So if you have a project manager seeking updates from someone in Argentina, that person in Argentina can do a quick video update and show maybe their screen and say where they're at in the process of, let's say, their work, and keep it at that. And so by the time, let's say, the project manager wakes up in the morning, she has this update and is raring to go, knowing full well what had happened or what was happening with that project. So I fully understand being in a remote capacity and having other coworkers in other time zones, the limitations. And you can combat those limitations in terms of time just by communicating on video. Usually I don't like to say, communicate on Slack, because Slack is so instantaneous that I could be sleeping, and if I don't have it off, I'll still get the notification. So I don't tend to do it that way. I usually just do it through email, through a video link, and then they know by the time that you wake up what the status is.
Absolutely. And then Lydia here writes, love the idea of video updates. Yes, I think that we're just definitely changing the way that we communicate in our, like, on our teams and also to our consumers, right? It's really nice to see everyone evolving that way. Okay, so I've got another journey here. So Gail has worked as a remote employee for multiple years, as well as in office, and she's managed a team of BAs in Hungary while living in Austin. Each scenario she's been in has presented challenges, but she was able to be productive and successful with all of them. Great. Gail, if you've got any tips or you want to come off of mute, feel free to write them in the chat box as well, since you've been so successful with your remote jobs. Awesome. Great. So actually, Beth, we've got to follow up on her question here with onboarding. So congratulations that your husband is in an interview, and we recognize that you can't take yourself off of mute now. Her question, more like, what type of onboarding do companies do from a company standpoint?
I've seen companies more and more lately been doing video tutorials as their onboarding. So that they can just list a channel of videos or a playlist of videos, and then they end up giving some sort of like questions or tests at the end of these tutorials. And so that's what I've seen more companies asking me about in terms of onboarding new employees, because you repeat the same things over and over again as you start to get more hires. So having a consistent and easy flow to that makes it better for onboarding new employees, and you don't have to repeat everything again. So, and you don't have to take live meetings to answer their questions either. So you can let them absorb the information and then ask their question via video.
Great. And then a follow-up question as well from Beth. And how do you connect directly with the team personally? Try to engage with the lunchtime or happy hour?
Yeah, actually, if they are with me, so some of my team is actually here in the Seattle area. And even though I am a remote employee, I still take the time, pre-COVID, I will say, to go ahead and meet with them maybe for an hour or two. And sometimes we would do personal training, one-on-one, or just even get, a couple drinks just to get to know them. I've actually had, my company's really good about this, but we do get together pre-COVID to meet and just to have dinner, which is really great, because then you get to see their personality a little bit more and get to know that maybe they were joking and not being mean to you on certain projects.
Right. And so, of course, can you put that into the context of COVID? So it sounds like, I mean, I think that we could all, it's so crazy that we're all at this crossroads and we can all just say pre-COVID, right? How are we bringing in, all of the responsibility and the creativity and, the desire to engage, deeper right now during COVID. Do you want to talk about that a little more? Like, what is your team discovering now, for example, or what have you seen recently that teams are doing now to try to walk through some of those difficulties?
I've seen, I think as the months have gone by, and I think I've highlighted a little bit about this before, it's just reaching out a little bit more and being more authentic and compassionate with our situations, and really listening. And I find that that's sometimes we don't do that as managers or even as fellow coworkers, but really listening to what they're going through. So if someone like I had a coworker who had lost somebody in their life, just reaching out and being personal, and still knowing that there's people behind these Slack chats or these live Zoom calls. So just even reaching out or just having that personal phone call or just a live Zoom call. I mean, we are all people, and we all still do the job. But aside from that, we're authentically going through a lot of the same things. And so, what companies have been doing is to be more authentic about that, I think. I have been seeing that a little bit more.
Absolutely. And Gail here also chimes in, planning one-on-ones with team members could be nice. in her experience that has worked. Communication and humanization, being personal and caring about the individual as well as their job and results. Absolutely. I love that. I mean, this is like, I want to give you a great big gold star, and everyone who is practicing this as far as like listening is concerned, and how this situation, one of the fruits of this situation is that we're called to listen more. And that just makes me like, that just makes my nerd alert go off, because I love speaking about emotional intelligence in the workplace and in life. So listening is key for emotional intelligence. And you're so right. Like, one thing that I noticed, and I'm sure you can speak to this as well as you have traveled the world, but in different countries, where they don't do handshakes, let's say, you're kind of called to engage, or greet or say goodbye to someone in a different way. That is a little more maybe shocking to some people, but it does connect you in a different way, like maybe giving the beso on the cheeks or something like that. I find that, especially in the States, that we have this automatic, hey, how you doing? Okay, bye, and we kind of keep this, we keep on our own track, and it's easy to not engage or not to listen because we're super busy. And so it's interesting that having this screen detach us physically is asking us to listen more. I love that you're highlighting that.
Yep.
And I see folks shaking their head as well, so I'm sure, and especially with all of the things that are happening on a global level, I mean, how can you not listen more?
Exactly. It's with everything going on, yes, exactly. You just have to be listening and be more compassionate, understanding about people and their lives. And I think that's the invitation right now. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the invitation, beautifully said. All right, so let's move on to this next question. Again, if this is your question and you want to chime in, feel free to do so. Okay, so I'm used to a 9-to-5 in-office schedule. Any tips for trying out a more flexible schedule while still adhering to the productivity expectations of the role? Or should I stick to what I'm used to and not mess with it?
I'd say experiment with it. I think when I started with my remote job, I kind of went back and forth, and then I found that the 8:30 to 5 or 4:30 schedule was very convenient for me. But I do say experiment with it. I give myself a lot of flexibility in terms of allowing myself a chance to walk outside, take a breather, or even going, grocery shopping. So I feel like when I do things like that, I feel more grateful that I do have the flexibility to do that. Not a lot of jobs provide that flexibility where I can get up and go grocery shopping for an hour and then come back. So I find that when I do things like that, I'm much more grateful for where I am and for my job. So yeah, I think be flexible, experiment a little bit more, take an hour off, at 2:00 in the afternoon, take a nap. Because no matter what, your boss is going to ask you to fulfill a project. They're not, on your computer checking you every second of every day. So, or hopefully they're not. So be flexible with yourself and check to see, I know with me, I am raring to go usually in the morning, and then by the afternoon, I'm kind of slower. So I give myself that, I allow myself a break in the afternoon, because I know who I am and know how I work. So, and I always write everything down on a notepad, everything that I need to accomplish that day. And so I just check it off as I go.
Absolutely. I love that you're also highlighting flexibility and experimenting. These are big buzzwords that I love to use in my personal life. So I'm happy that you're sharing that with everyone today. And then it also gets you into a more of a natural rhythm, I find, instead of having this hovering, head over your desk, maybe they're not, but essentially they're, 2 steps away. Of course, you have to finish your work and do the best that you can and live up to the expectation that you are saying that you're going to do. But also, if you can have that flexibility now working remotely, and go out and look at the sky for a little bit or take a nap. I mean, I love that you say that, because I'm sure if we've got a lot of folks in the States on the call, naps are like old school for kids in kindergarten. not for adults. Here, it's so funny. In Argentina, there are some cities that you cannot buy anything between the hours of 1 p.m.
Yeah.
to 3 p.m. People are working, that, the shops are open, they're working, and then things are closed because they're having tea time or they're resting. And I find that that's something that, at least during, this remote season, over these past couple of years, I find that people are getting into a more natural rhythm by listening to those kinds of experiments, as you call them. What happens if I go for a walk during this time when normally I wouldn't be able to because I'd have someone, hovering over my shoulder?
I actually, and I've seen studies where they've said that if you're a remote worker, you are much more productive than being in the office. And I actually believe that to be true just because of what I've experienced and what I've seen with my coworkers. I mean, we're just knocking out work just like that. And I know that when I worked at Microsoft, it would take forever to get anything done just because, you're at the office all day, you talk to people, you're trying to, the decisions aren't being made instantaneously as it would be for a remote job. And I think people respond a lot better when they're remote. I know for me, when I first started, I felt like, oh, wow, I have all this flexibility. I'm just going to work harder because I don't want them thinking I'm slacking. And so, so I'm like working harder than I normally would at an office. So yeah, and the siesta, I think there's something that, for the Spanish speaking countries or wherever they have siesta, there's something to be said about that. They have happier lives. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so this is a great question here that Beth has put in the chat box. As far as flexibility and scheduling and things like that, what if you start early, but then people expect you to be at meetings later in the day?
Okay, then I would start a little bit later so that you can get your meetings in, because no one can really expect you to be working 10 to 14 hours a day. Just schedule it in, and just like I said, be flexible with it. You don't, if you're not expected to start early, then I probably wouldn't. I get my jobs, I get my projects done as I would, but also get those meetings done. And those meetings are a part of your workday. So you might want to, consider, if your latest meeting is at 5 o'clock, consider working at, 8 or 9, and just adjusting to that. I do that.
Great. Absolutely. And then a follow-up question, is there a way to maintain your flexible schedule with your team? So, and I just want to chime in too, because I see some folks writing in the chat box as far as blocking off your calendar. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? Maybe that can help this person be more confident in being flexible while adhering to, team flexibility or non-flexibility.
To be honest with you, I block out my schedule for taking out my dog to the groomers, or I put down appointment or something, because you really need to block out that time so that people understand if you're sharing calendars that you're not available, and so they can't expect an instant answer right away. So yes, I do block out for appointments like that. Because I'll be on the road. I can't answer a question, but I do have the flexibility, or I do have, my phone that has Slack. And if there is something that we're launching or they need me, then I will see it. If it's not that important, then I'll answer it after my appointment. So yes, block out the time. For sure.
And I want to stay there a little longer, because I know that we've hosted some chats where we talk about this perfectionist syndrome, and actually even overworking ourselves to the point of exhaustion or whatever. How can we avoid that in your perspective, especially working remotely? So you're talking a little bit about blocking your calendar, but what is the limit to always being available? I mean, and especially speaking as a manager or a director, or, there's so many different roles to consider. So feel free to approach it however you want.
When I first started working remotely, I worked tirelessly. I was constantly on, only because I felt within me that I needed to prove myself. But after a while, I realized that sometimes even my boss would just would ask me a question, but it's only because the question was on his mind at that moment. and not because he needed an answer right away. So understanding that maybe this isn't really important, and maybe, just being flexible with that, and just knowing that you don't always have to be on. I've restricted myself. I will not answer emails in bed. And I turn off my phone, starting from, I think it was like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock all the way until the morning. So make sure that your work emails don't go through during the non-working hours. You really, as a remote worker, really need to differentiate what's personal time and family to work time. And I think that's really hard sometimes being in a remote situation, because we want the flexibility, but we really need to define that for ourselves and the importance for ourselves. There are a lot of questions um, pride or on email. I don't need to answer it at 10 p.m. at night. I can wait till the following morning. And a lot of people do understand, especially if you're working across time zones. So, I think the understanding is out there, and I think knowing for yourself what's important to you. I think once you make that stance, then it kind of it shows to the rest of your team that they don't need to expect a 6 a.m. Slack message from you.
Absolutely. Be the change you want to see, right? I love that. I love that you're bringing it back to you as a person. How do you thrive, right? And to set those expectations. And also, you helped me think of something else that I have found beneficial, and I'm sure you've experimented with this as well. So like, it's so funny. Our minds are so quick, and so you're right. People will write anything that comes to mind down, and we might think that it's like urgent or it's a priority. So what I started to do is, if I had, I would preface, this is a rant, no need to respond until, next week, or, this is the priority, and kind of set up the template you would like to receive. So maybe, it starts to echo, and then you can find balance. It might not work with everyone, but maybe someone really appreciates that. And I'm sure you would as well. So just, I dreamt about this last night. This could help with the product demo. Doesn't require a response, but, put it in your folder or something like that. I find that has helped me. So, because otherwise you're right. You're just available all the time. You're responding. You want to problem solve. And we're just getting better and better at problem solving these days, but we're also losing more sleep and more sanity because of that.
Yeah, and I also, I think I've kind of hinted to it, but I emphasize boundaries. So once you set that boundary, then they know what they can get from you and what they cannot during certain times. So I think setting your own personal boundaries and knowing and letting people know, hey, I won't be available during this time, and it's okay to tell them you're not available. It's very okay to let them know that you're, dropping kids off and things like that. Once they know that you've got a personal life, I think they're much more willing to understand and be more flexible with you and your schedule.
Absolutely. Great. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I just want to let everyone on the call know. So now's your time to shine. If you have not had a chance to jump off of mute yet, or write in the chat box. And then Christine, if you feel like there's a question we might not get to, feel free to bring that up as well. For now, we'll talk about this question here on the screen. So my company stresses that over communication is preferred in almost every situation. How can I get over feeling like I'm pestering my supervisor with the details of my day, or conversely, like I'm reporting to a babysitter, while still keeping them informed of my progress and work status?
Mm-hmm. It's all about the independence. But I think what you could do maybe the start or even at the end of the day is, like I said earlier, do a quick video update. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I think I'll focus on tomorrow, and here's what's going on with this project overall. I think that if you do a 1 or 2 minute update at the end of each day, and you make that regular, where your boss is starting to figure out, hey, that's her update, then they'll know that that's the best way for them to update you. And I think just an update is kind of over communication. I mean, I honestly don't do regular updates with my boss because I think he understands how I work, but I do get him updated once a week on one-on-ones, which is really good. So as long as there's a formal way of asking your boss, how do you want me to update? Email, video, one-on-one, what would be best for you so you know that I am progressing in this project? I think getting that expectation out first and foremost is best before you try to overthink what over communication is. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's see. Let's move on to this next question here. I see that some of you are writing in the chat box. Actually, I'll come to this question in the chat box. Oh, I think it's just Gail giving her opinion. Great. So while I'm onboarding, I send over a weekly summary of accomplishments and plans for the week ahead and ask for any feedback on missing anything or change on priorities.
Yep.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so my laptop comes with the built-in webcam, but should I invest in a separate camera to make sure video quality is optimal? And then go ahead and dive in deep with any kind of products or tools or apps or whatever you recommend that will enhance our experience.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the laptops nowadays have good quality cameras anyway. Right now, I'm using my own Mac as my webcam. I have my own other webcam that I use for my PC, but I find I experiment a little bit because I find that it could be grainy. So it really just depends on the webcam that you do choose, but it's not necessary. I also have this thing over my my web like that. So those times when you don't want to be on camera, and I kind of just slide it. So that's a cool tool that I use. The other thing is I have something like this. So audio, I feel, is much more important than sometimes video because you really need to hear somebody. So I have this Blue Yeti that I use for video tutorials because I do create a lot of video, and I also do a lot of live. So I have that here. And then most of the software that you'll need is currently available online as well. So you don't really need anything fancy. I do have this light, which you'll see here, kind of changing my, but it really doesn't, for me, improve it as much because I wear glasses and you can see all the reflections. So really your computer is good. You could have a different mic and all the software you need is available online.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I see folks nodding their heads. Great. I'm glad. Okay, so we've got just about 5 or 6 more minutes here. So I want to hit on this last question, and then I'd love, Christine, for you to take us away. Let us know how we can connect with you and leave us with some food for thought. But let's tackle this question first. So my new role is going to involve a lot of on-camera presenting. If my company doesn't provide equipment, laptops, desk chairs, etc., but does reimburse for other work-related expenses, LinkedIn Pro, VPNs, etc., should I ask my new company to reimburse me for supplies to facilitate this new role, like webcam, light ring, etc.? And if yes, how do I phrase this?
Yeah, actually, yes. You should ask for it. I know I do, especially with everything that I'm doing right now. I do ask for that. How I would ask is I would ask what the expectation is. So even, in the beginning of this call, we talked about expectations with your boss. I would actually put that in there. So you're expecting me to do these live calls, and I believe I need a new background. What do you think? And having that open it up as a soft discussion with them, and then presenting them with, would that be something the company would reimburse me for? Most often or not, they will say yes, because that's essentially what you're doing for your job. So getting that done with the expectations from the get-go is the best way to ask.
Beautiful. Thank you, Christine. Okay, so Why don't we, well, we've got about 4 minutes left, so I'd love to just kind of keep this an open-ended kind of closure to this past hour. Christine, is there anything else that you want to speak about? Any questions that you want to kind of flag, or any personal stories you want to tell? And if so, great, share that. If not, leave us with some food for thought so we can feel confident in this new crazy time, especially with working remotely.
Yeah, I think we emphasized it pretty much on this call is to be who you are, especially if you're doing these live Zoom calls or even video recordings or things of that nature. Just be who you are, because I think, as we all know, if you go into the office, we all know who isn't authentic and who is. So now that we are in COVID times, it's more important than ever just to be real, because I think we're in a position, in a transition in our world right now, where that's what's screaming. And the more real you are, the more people will get you, I think. So I think, I work in video. Video does a lot in terms of, providing that authenticity and that connection. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that some of the things that you're flagging as well. I mean, at least this is how I'm able to make sense of it in my mind, is be the change you want to see, right? So I love that you're saying, like, be more real, be more authentic. And if that means not putting a full face of makeup on, don't do it, unless you really want to do it. Like, sometimes you do. Sometimes I want to go out and drag, and I do it, and I paint my face like however I want, and I don't care what people say. And then other times, like today, I have like allergy attacks going on. I didn't want anything on my eyes because I didn't want, makeup going in my eyes. So I mean, this is a part of what's happening right now, being real, being authentic, showing that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes and forms in different parts of the world. So I love that you are, making this more holistic, because obviously when you talk about camera stuff and video stuff, I'm from Los Angeles, and Hollywood really knows how to make things look fake.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're undoing all of that, unrealistic glamour that is happening, or that is, has been embedded in our society. So, we can put this into we can take the power back essentially and show people who we are. So yeah, I see you all nodding your head, so I appreciate that. Christine, let us know how we can connect with you offline. If some folks who are listening are interested in applying for these 2 jobs that you named as well, I'd love for you to talk a little bit through that before we wrap up this session.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead and contact me, either Christine@screencast-o-matic.com. I'm pretty sure the company name it's so long. My email address is so long, but yeah, you can contact me there, or you can actually just contact me via LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I do have a couple of the jobs posted. So, and we're like I said, we're a small team, and if you're not looking for a marketing job, but you have other specialties, let us know, because we'll keep you in mind. So yeah, just contact me via LinkedIn, and yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Christine, for taking the time out of your busy day. Thank you, everyone who's joined us live. I've learned a lot with you all. So again, thank you for showing us that the power of digital community can help the revolution happen. It's making me happy. It's making me kind of nerd out with you all, especially when you speak about emotional intelligence and being yourself. So I'm so happy to see that we're having these really important conversations. And we'll see you on the next chat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.